Welcome to day 9 of our questions and devotional reflections on topics from the book of Revelation. Today, we have a very weighty question, and really it's sort of not from the book of Revelation, but it's the kind of question I would be inclined to dodge, and so I thought better than that. The question sent in is hell real? Now, if you grew up with, cartoon images of devils with pitchforks and flames licking at the heels of sinners while they do, 8,000 leg lifts in aerobics in hell, then, no. Perhaps you've been around sort of the opposite. You've been around more sober-minded theological reflection that leans into words like, Sheol and Gehenna and Hades, or maybe even, Greek mythology, the Greek word Tartarus. The Bible doesn't really limit itself to one term or really even to one image. But if you're asking the question, is hell a real place? Then I am inclined to say, well, the short answer is yes. And horrifically, I think I need to say, I think the answer or that it is worse than you think. So, but let's back up. I have read and thought and wrestled with and pondered the topic of hell, eternal separation from God. There's lots of debates around the topic of hell, as you might imagine. It's important to note that virtually everything we know about hell comes from the mouth of Jesus. He's the one that gives us all the horrific images of, gnashing of teeth and unquenchable fire and bottomless pit. So again, we don't get much in the book of Revelation, but we get the word, we get Hades, and we get certainly some dark demonic images of afterlife. And so I want to just say this is obviously not in any sense a comprehensive discussion of the topic of hell, but I do think we need to note. And here I sort of side with C.S. Lewis in his thinking about hell. And Lewis was not a theologian, and he's quick to say he's not a theologian. He does write theology, and obviously very brilliantly and popularly. But he doesn't really actually write. Lewis doesn't write much on the Bible. He has a book on the Psalms, but that's really the only place where he really is trying to wrestle with Scripture. But he would argue, his famous line is, the door of hell is locked from the inside. Arguing a little differently than I would be comfortable with, but arguing that hell is a little bit more of a trajectory than it is a decision. And it's basically sort of the end game of those who say to God, no, I don't want you. I don't want you, I don't want you, I don't want you. I'm not going to believe, I'm not going to adhere, I'm not going to follow, I'm not going to be humble. I'm going to assert myself. And there's a sense in which those who are saying, in essence, to God, my will be done, not your will, eventually get their way, and they get separated from God, and not just from God, but from everything that God made, which of course would be everything. The Old Testament hints a little bit at some of this. You get into books like the book of Daniel, chapter 12, talks about everlasting contempt that some people have. Revelation picks up on this theme. And again, we're going to get lake of fire. We're going to get second death, a place where God is not. So I just want to say, nobody, not the most hardened atheist, whatever, not the most wicked, vile person in the world has ever been outside of what we call common grace. Everybody wakes up in a world held together by common grace, by the air we breathe, the beauty we glimpse. All of that stuff is from God, and it's evidence of God. And there's an argument to be made that hell is the absence of all of that. So some people ask, well, is hell a literal lake of fire? And I say, well, no, I don't think so. I cannot sort of reconcile the images of hell that we get from Jesus again. How could a lake of fire be a bottomless pit? Those things don't go together. But I want to be quick to say when I say, look, I don't think it is a literal in the way that most people use it. It is a literal lake of fire. But I think it's important to note that when the prophets, when the apostles and others are teaching about something, John in heaven, they're gonna use words they're gonna use metaphors, they're gonna use similes, they're gonna go in a direction to try and communicate something that they don't actually have the ability to communicate. So yeah, I just would say, yeah, I believe that there is eternal separation from God, and I don't know that I understand all that entails, but hell is real. So, by the way, is the cross. So, by the way, is the love of God. So the invitation goes out to everyone, not that we're selling, quote, fire insurance, but that we're inviting people into a right relationship with God. And so heaven is real. It is found in Jesus. And I think we have to deal with the fact that people that repeatedly continue to stiff-arm God will eventually get what they want. And that's eternal separation from God in ways that are unthinkable. Have a good day.